Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well. My name is Oha Cade, I'm a composer, and today we are revisiting the legendary performance of Ghost Love Score by Nightwish. In anticipation of the new album Yesterwind, look out for the album reaction for that. I wanted to revisit this performance as it really has become the iconic performance for Nightwish, and I wanted to talk about that. So we're going to listen to the song the whole way through, then I'll go back through it and make some comments as a composer and as a fan. And there will be a lyrical breakdown at the very end too, but that will be Patreon exclusive. So if you'd like to listen to my lyrical analysis and get into discussion about the lyrics of this song, please see a link to my Patreon in the description to the extended reaction. Let's get right into it. Such an epic opener. We miss Yuka. The snare coming in, love that. Imagine seeing this with a live orchestra. That needs to happen. This might be my favorite song ever, by the way. Her delivery of these verses. It's actually a really groovy rhythm, isn't it? And her vocals over it, just heavenly. Perfect time for a break. Fun. Love that part. We'll talk about all of this more in depth on our second run through. For now, we're just enjoying. If you've ever been to a Nightwish concert and you've seen this song live, similar to this, you'll know that this moment here is actually, to me, it's one of the best parts of the performance because the build up is so awesome, you know? Just waiting for that hit to kick in is really cool. The arrangement in this orchestral segment, it's literally perfection. Big shout out to Pip Williams, the conductor orchestrator for that album. So epic. The transitions in this song, just mind-blowing. There's a lot going on here, and we will talk about it. So good. Never gets old. She totally killed it. Just single-handedly changing the course of Nightwish history with this performance. Yeah, obviously a legendary song, commonly accepted, I'd say, as their best song ever. You know, we all have our opinions, we all have our favorites, but objectively speaking, when it comes to the single greatest song they've ever made, I think it's hard to argue that this isn't it. So I hope you guys enjoyed that reaction of me revisiting the song. Now we're gonna get into the brass tacks. I'd like to go through this song and discuss it in more detail. We're gonna break it down a little bit. Let's start from the beginning and see what's going on here. The rhythm here is something along the lines of 2 measures of 6/8 and 1 measure of 4/8. You could also look at it as 2 measures of 3/4 and 1 measure of 2/4, but there's just a little missed beat there just to keep the rhythm interesting, make the song feel a little bit unpredictable. And I just love how the song just immediately kicks into a combination of toms and choir. Out of nowhere. No real build up, just kind of hits you right away with that, and I love it. The little unexpected beat there, that's the little 2/4, really cool. And here we have a key change combined with Yuka transitioning to snare work rather than tom work. And that's a really cool contrast. It's a beautiful way to lift the song up early. You know, key changes typically are known for being used at the end of like pop songs. Whitney Houston has a couple of good examples, like the final chorus of I Want to Dance with Somebody or I Will Always Love You. But Tumas has a really interesting way of songwriting in Nightwish where he will sprinkle key changes all over the track as a way to either provide a lift or take us into a bit of a darker section by changing the key lower rather than higher. So early on in this song, we actually get 4 key changes, and their key changes up and their key changes down. So we've encountered the first key change here from D minor to F minor. There's your first key change. And that was the second key change back down to D minor. Because with the combination of the band coming in with that rhythm and the key change downwards, it makes it feel extra heavy when that happens. There you have the next key change. I did say 4 key changes. Really, I was thinking about 4 keys. So we started in D minor, then up to F minor, back down to D minor, now we're back up to F minor again. It's really already we're kind of on a roller coaster. We're going up and down, our emotions are being swept away. It's really cool stuff. Transition into 4/4 here from the 3/4. And here we have the first taste of Floor's interpretation of the song. And as a longtime fan, hearing her version for the first time was really a spiritual, incredible experience. I will always be a fan of Tarja's version. I absolutely love the studio version, especially because you can hear the orchestral details a lot more clearly in that version. So if I were listening casually, I would actually usually listen to the studio performance. But of course, when I first heard Floor's version, my thought was, wow, this is such a perfect interpretation of this song too. Obviously, we have a lighter approach, a poppier approach, a little bit more musical theatre style, more chest voice, more belting. It's a totally new colour for this song that is so welcome, and I know we sort of take for granted this performance because we've heard it so many times, but when I first heard this, I was like, wow, kudos to Floor, seriously. And this has to be one of the prettiest choruses I've heard from Nightwish. Just a really nice, pretty long extended note in contrast to that somewhat aggressive groove and the choir chanting. Great combo of sounds. I really love that lead vocal melody though. It's really, really pretty. First of all, the stability of that final note, the breath control, really goes without saying. It's such a professional performance from someone who has perfected their craft over many years. I'm not sure how much more I can add to this performance that hasn't already been said by countless reactors and voice coaches over the years, but I can try to bring up some stuff that maybe hasn't been pointed out before, such as the fact that this line, "Into the Blue Memory," what I love about that section is it only appears once in the whole song, and it sort of functions as a transition from the chorus, which is actually quite driving, into this completely still, I suppose, calm waters of a section. And it's such a pretty section too. It really is just a few words and a brief break into a halftime feeling that lasts only for a second until we transition out of it and we're floating. That transition into the Blue Memory might be one of my favorite parts of the song for that reason. It's so smooth, so beautiful.
Siren from the deep came to me, sang my name, I love you. Still I write my songs about the dream of mine.
And what I love about this part is that it's so well placed in terms of the overall arc of the song. The song is over 10 minutes long, and 3 minutes in, we've slowed it down quite a bit. You know, we have an even slower part after this, but towards the end of the song, we have a good 5 or 6 minutes of very intense metal, basically. That 5 or 6 minutes of very intense metal hits a lot harder and is a lot more welcome after so many slow build-ups. So the crafting of this song is excellent in that sense.
Worth everything I may ever be.
The solo is really beautiful because it doesn't do anything unnecessary. There's not a whole lot of showing off or shredding in it. It's playing the very simple melody that has been given to us in the last few measures by Floor in the vocal melody. The whole progression of this slower section right here makes total sense and is such a pleasure to float along with. One thing I will say is that, see, this is where I'm kind of missing the studio version a little bit, where there's a beautiful sort of piano or harp build up into the solo that you can't quite hear here, unfortunately. There's usually a little piano lick there that helps with the transition into the solo. So I know we're all obsessed with this live performance, but I just want you guys to check out the studio version from time to time, because there's a lot that you might be missing. That beautiful rising flute, absolutely love it. So this whole purely orchestral section is stunningly beautiful. Can truly be fully appreciated, as I said, in the original studio version on Once. But even live, I have to say, having seen the song live and having heard just the playback of this orchestral section, it really pulls the whole audience into the moment. It really feels like, wow, we are part of a cinematic experience here. Like, we're in it. Give it to us. This is so epic. It's really a cool effect that's hard to describe, and I truly believe this is one of the most beautiful orchestral sections Nightwish has ever made, which is not surprising because it's part of what's commonly accepted to be the best song they've ever made, but just wanted to emphasize how cool it is, really. The playful oboe foreshadowing the melody that we're going to get once the band kicks right back in. Love that. And I know that Pip Williams did a lot of work on arranging the orchestra and stuff, and I really am curious to hear the early demo of Ghost Love Score to see which parts were Tuomas, like which ideas were Tuomas and which parts were Pip. I have a feeling that the overall vibe and like the chord progression was really Tuomas, and he might have thrown in some ideas here and there, but I did hear a quote from Tuomas once. I could have dreamt this, but I believe Tuomas once said that in Ghost Love Score he felt like there was a whole bit of silence that he didn't know what to do with, so he just said, listen Pip, just do whatever you want with this and do your thing and I'm sure it's going to be great. And Pip composed this orchestral section pretty much, which would be really interesting. So that's why I'm just curious about the distribution of the work between the two of them on this particular part of the song. Like, I'm wondering if those little flute runs and the oboe runs are Pip's idea or Tuomas. It doesn't really matter because, you know, the song exists as is, the song is sick. It doesn't really matter who did what, but I just out of curiosity would like to know that. The subtle rising of tension, I'm totally living for it. The emotion in it. The drama, the cinema, love it. And finishing off with the French horn. And have you ever heard a more epic crash in from a softer section? So cool, so epic. I remember thinking when I first heard this song as a young teenager that this melody felt very Pirates of the Caribbean inspired. And I cannot remember if Pirates of the Caribbean came out before this album or if it's sort of a coincidence. They're actually not that similar, these two melodies, but I guess the way they flow, you get a bit of a rolling waves feeling to it, a certain adventurous feeling from it, and it's very much evoking the image of the sea, which is no surprise. Hey, sorry for the interruption. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to finish my reaction, and it's been a couple days, but we're back. Let's continue. I just said that this melody is evoking the sea, which is no surprise since Tumas is an ocean soul. As we know, he loves the ocean. These vibes are ever present in his music. Let's continue. Yet another great use of a key change here. I believe that's an interval of 3 semitones, so it's a very dramatic leap in the key. And I really love that section because it lends a bit of chaos to the song. It's a very unexpected break, especially on initial listen. Obviously, we're so used to hearing it that it fits so well in the song, but when you listen to this part, dun, da, 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 dun, da, 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 dun, la, dun, dun, there's a chromatic feel to it. There's a hint of dissonance, and there's a distinct chaos to it, especially with the choir pounding and stuff. Really aggressive. And here's where we really drop into the aggression, the heavy riffs and Floor's gritty vocals. Even in Tarja's version, this melody is a little bit more aggressive sounding and darker than the rest of the song. It's a nice contrast to the lighter and brighter melodies that we've had so far, so it's a very nice progression. A little bit of Arabic flair to this scale too, which we've had tastes of in the song so far, but not quite as predominant as this. You hear that Arabic scale? La, na, na, na. And there's actually quite a few key changes going on here too. This is another section that I really love, only because I think the contrast between the straight guitar chords and the little flute solos and the oboe solos, the tones are so different between those instruments that it's a really beautiful, lovely contrast. The dancing melodies is just an amazing combination. Another key change down. And this orchestral break is really cool too, very chromatic. And a chromatic scale is basically crawling down by semitones. So it lacks a certain musicality because you're just crawling down by the tone. For example, na, and I don't know, this is just a cute break. It gives me vibes of like a sort of mischievous villain in a Disney movie or something like that. Kind of has an old school Disney vibe to it, quite nostalgic. And it's a good palate cleanser before we kick back into the main melody. And I really think the part that we're about to jump into is the most euphoric part of this track, and I'm sure you guys would agree too. Another key change. What an amazing part of the song. My personal favorite part, the orchestra is just pounding. Yuka is hammering on his toms. It's pure power, pure emotion. Really at that moment, evoking the sentiment in the lyrics also. And we'll get to the lyrical analysis on Patreon, but this part of the song is where I feel the whole theme and the real heart of the song comes together. And what I also love is that even though the melody is fairly consistent through this whole part, those little flourishes in the orchestra, like small details that the strings and the flutes are doing to make each bar feel a little bit more distinct. And now we're, of course, about to break back into the choir stings that call back to the opening of the song. That, of course, is a callback to the opening of the song, and I want to call out a couple of these beautiful orchestral details in this moment. You hear that small little string stab. There's a tiny little string stab that is so awesome. Love that. And I love the feeling of that French horn just yelling through all the chaos. Beautifully contrasting textures. You're getting the beauty and power of that French horn with that extended note, but also the chaos of the 3/4 rhythm with the 2/4. A lot going on, but very digestible, powerful and clear to your ears. Love it. And this Redeem Me into Childhood part, I'll admit, I feel is the most questionable transition of the whole song. Now that I've heard it so many times, I quite enjoy it, and I do think it works. But it is the transition that I think is the roughest, for lack of a better word, because we're transitioning here from, I think it's the key of B flat minor, into D minor, which I believe is the key that the song started in. That actually fits really well thematically with the lyrics, redeem me into childhood, you know. We're calling back to the beginning of the song. Thematically it works. I'm just not sure sonically, after that extended drum roll, if that particular transition into the new key works perfectly. It does work well. I don't know if it's perfect like the rest of the song. It's the only part I'm like, a little bit dodgy, maybe, but still really well done, of course. Well, let's appreciate Flora's interpretation of this part. Beautiful adjustment to the melody there to suit her own style. That high belt is obviously one of the coolest parts of this performance. And I was just thinking there, I think because that Redeem Me into Childhood verse is so much of a stark transition, it is a little bit of a nice palate cleanser from the overbearing power of the previous section. So in that sense, it also works. Another point I'd like to make is I love how that verse is, as far as I can tell, not calling back to anything or not repeated anywhere else in the song, which is another really lovely trait about this song, is that there's not a whole lot of repetition throughout it. Each part is quite different, so the songwriting is very linear. We're not really getting a whole lot of copy-paste. Every part is quite different, but it flows into the next part and fits well with the previous section. I find this song very inspiring for that reason. It gives you faith that you don't need to repeat a whole lot. As long as the linear writing is very strong, you can really create such a powerful journey. Let's continue. And even though this chorus is obviously repeated, it's a chorus, choruses get repeated, it's actually in a lower key now than it was previously in the song. So in that sense, we get a lot of variety, even with the chorus. Beautifully done. And the fact that the lead vocal melody is a little lower, in a lower key here, gives it a bit of a more sorrowful feeling. It's really coming from the belly, from the heart. Incredible choice in terms of songwriting. Obviously, incredible technique and control showcased here by Floor, and a really awesome melody to enhance the spectacle of the live show. Now, as most of us are aware, this melody that she sings right here is not actually included in the studio version. And to me, as far as the studio version goes, I don't think that this melody that Floor added to the song would work in a studio version. I think this melody, this vocal melody that she adds at the very end here, that is really the source of so much awe for so many Nightwish fans, old and new, works only as part of the live performance because it creates a huge bit of spectacle. It really is a live moment. She's showing us what she can do. She really has us on the edge of our seat. We are wowed, of course, but I'm still quite happy with how the studio version is, with the straight repetition of the choir just by itself, with no additional vocals over it, because I do think that is sort of a tasteful way to settle out of the song, as it's already quite an over-the-top feeling. It's more of a vibe, you know? No one is really the star of the show. It's a good organic mix of the band, the orchestra, and Tarja's vocals, all acting as one. Whereas obviously the live performance, Floor is really stealing the show here. So that's why I think that final vocalization she makes in this live performance wouldn't work in the studio version, as it would take away from the song. But I think it works great as a live moment. But I do have a criticism for the studio version. Before y'all come at me, it's not like I'm writing for the studio version till the end. It's right at the very end that I do have a criticism for the studio version, but let's finish this live performance off first and we'll get to that. Great way to end the song live with that sort of Decelerando style moment of the whole band with the final crash. It's a perfectly good way to end the song in the live setting. Now, the criticism I have for the studio version is I'm not a big fan of fade outs. And as we know, that's how the studio version ends, with a fade out. I would love to have had a more imaginative ending to the studio version than the fade out. The fade out works perfectly fine, but I would love to have seen what they could have done if they had committed to a more satisfying ending with a bit more closure. I'm picturing that the band could have had a moment like this where, the final guitar chord was extended. And I think what would have been lovely is one final orchestral part to bring the song down as a sort of relief from the storm, if you will. But that's just my one final thought. Really a small nitpick for my favorite song of all time. Really enjoyed rewatching this performance and talking about my favorite parts of this track. And of course, I'm super excited to react to the new album just coming out in a couple of days. I hope you guys will subscribe and join me for that. I've only heard one song, Perfume of the Timeless, haven't heard anything else, so it's going to be a really fun time. Now let's move on to the lyrics for Ghost Love Score. This analysis will be Patreon exclusive, so see a link in the description to the extended reaction. You'll also get access to my reaction to the Perfume of the Timeless music video too. Alright, let's get into these lyrics and see what we can figure out. Now, of course, I'm familiar with these lyrics. I've heard them, read them before many times, and I've always wondered what they mean, but let's think through it line by line and analyze as best we can. And we'll look at some of the genius annotations and information afterwards to see how close we were, if really the true meaning of this song is actually out there. Cool. That about concludes my analysis of Ghost Love Score. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope again that you will join me for my full album reaction to Yesterwind this weekend. I'm excited. Feel free to join me on Patreon for a little extra exclusive Nightwish content. Otherwise, please like, subscribe, comment, hit the notification bell, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. Thanks so much and take care.